Yo, so I just got through watching this video where this content creator was reacting to a bunch of different truck drivers' videos. It was like a compilation video that he made. And the first truck driver who he reacted to, this person said that their paycheck was 300 bucks. They said they just started working for this company and they only ran like 1,000 miles. They only had a few loads and the paycheck was 300 bucks. He said he's broke. He don't have enough money for food and he's gonna have to get a cash advance from the company that he worked for just to be able to buy some food. And he basically was asking his viewers, what should he do? He said he was making more money at a call center. And, you know, the other, I don't know, 3 or 4 people that this content creator reacted to, you know, they had similar grievances, right? They wasn't happy in trucking. A lot of them was saying, look, trucking isn't what people make it out to be. It's no money in trucking. They were saying all type of stuff, right? Listen, man, this is just my observation. Hopefully nobody takes offense to what I'm getting ready to say in this video, because I'm not trying to offend nobody. I'm just speaking my mind and just sharing with you guys what I've observed for the 5.5 years that I've been in the industry and just watching content, things of that nature. Some of the most disgruntled truck drivers, some of the most unhappy truck drivers, all seem to have one thing in common. And that is they're over-the-road truck drivers. Again, no offense to any truck driver that's over the road that enjoys what you do, because I know there are a lot of you guys out there who are OTR drivers and you guys actually like being OTR. I'm not talking to you guys. But for a lot of guys, for the vast majority of truck drivers who have gone OTR and experienced that lifestyle and that have made videos sharing their experience, by a long shot, most of the people that I hear that are unhappy with trucking are over-the-road truck drivers. Again, that doesn't mean that all the OTR truck drivers are, because like I just said, there are some truck drivers who are doing over the road who absolutely love it. You couldn't pay them to go local. On the other side of the spectrum, that doesn't mean that all the local truck drivers are happy, because I've heard a lot of disgruntled local truck drivers. So I don't want you guys to get the impression that it's sweet if you're a local truck driver. Trust me, I've heard my fair share of unhappiness, for lack of a better word, in the local trucking game as well. I've even heard truck drivers who have gone OTR, went local, and said local was worse than OTR, and they went back OTR. So I've heard just about every scenario that you can think of when it comes to trucking. A lot of different experiences. And so here's the thing, man, with trucking. First off, you know, there's a lot of different variables in trucking. The company you go to, the job that you do, where you live, it's so many different things that factor into how your overall experience is going to be in this trucking industry. I'm going to tell you straight up, for anybody that wants to go over the road, if you're a new driver, I'm just going to tell you, man, you don't have to take my word for it. Just listen to a lot of the over the road truck drivers, people who have experienced OTR. You really have to understand what that lifestyle is all about. I talk about my first trucking job, or at least I have in past videos. There's a reason why I never went OTR. Because OTR, for me personally, it just doesn't fit the lifestyle that I want to live. I also don't think the upside outweighs the downside when it comes to over-the-road truck driving. Not for me. I feel like, for me personally, I would have to sacrifice way too much to be an over-the-road driver. And that's just something that I wouldn't compromise on, right? I love being at home. I love, being at home with my wife, spending time with her. I also don't want my wife to be at home by herself for weeks at a time. Currently, I'm a regional food service delivery driver. I'm only away from home 2 nights a week. And, my wife isn't necessarily happy about that because she wants me in the bed every night. But I couldn't imagine being away from home a week at a time, 2 weeks at a time, etc. In my particular situation, right? I don't have to worry about kids per se. My daughters are grown, so I don't have to worry about that. But I like the lifestyle that I have right now with the job that I have, right? So I couldn't imagine going over the road. Beyond that, I can't even fathom making $300 a week, man. Or let me not say $300 a week, because I don't know if this person get paid weekly or bi-weekly. But I can't even imagine receiving a paycheck for $300. A paycheck for $300 for going over the road. Driving a 53-foot semi-tractor trailer. That is insane to me. Listen, I can remember being in trucking school and listening to some of those mega carrier recruiters come in and talk about the whole experience. And they talked about training pay. And at that time, which was, again, almost 6 years ago, some of those recruiters was talking about the pay was $500 a week, $600 a week for training and all that. When I heard that, I immediately got turned off. My interest going over the road was out the door at that point. I didn't have any plans on going over the road anyway. Like, my whole plan was to stay local. I didn't know what that looked like at the time. But I went with a beer company. Beer company was the first trucking job or company that gave me an opportunity. Shout out to all the beer drivers out there, the beverage guys. And I talked about my experience at, my first trucking job. I hated it. It was brutal. It was the worst job I ever had. The pay was terrible. I was making $1,600 bi-weekly. It was terrible, right? There were days where I worked, or weeks where I worked 60 plus hours. It just wasn't worth it. You know what I'm saying? But as a new truck driver, as an inexperienced driver, I felt like, okay, let me go ahead and do this job. Once I, after my first few weeks, I knew I wasn't going to be at that job long. The amount of work you had to do versus, the pay, it didn't make sense to me. It just wasn't worth it. And I mean, there were days where I was going in violation. I was working well beyond the amount of hours I was supposed to work. So I'm putting my CDL in jeopardy. But I'm green, I'm inexperienced, I'm a rookie. I didn't know any better. And the company they wasn't really strict about it. It was like normal there to work, in violation. I wasn't the only one that worked more hours than he should have, right? And so that in itself kind of speaks to what that job was all about, man. And like I said, I'm grateful that they gave me an opportunity, but I was happy to be away from there. You know what I mean? I spent 4 months there. It was a terrible experience, but I moved on, and at the company I work for now. I've been here, like I said, over 5 years, and it's been a good experience overall, right? Like, I made more in 1 week than I made in 2 weeks there. And, I can't complain. I work less hours, like 10 to 15 hours less, and still make a lot more money. The schedule is sweet where I'm at now. Man, I can't complain. So, the thing about trucking, man, you just really have to find out what works for you. And, if you realize a company isn't meeting your expectations, or it's not what you thought it was, or it's not what they said it was going to be, then you really have to sit back and ask yourself, okay, is this something that I can tolerate? Can I move forward under these conditions? Or do I need to part ways with this company? You have to know your value. And I think if you're like me, no company can really pay me what I'm worth, right? And at the end of the day, they don't necessarily have to. But as long as, at least for me, let me speak for myself, as long as the compensation is a reasonable amount for the work, the time, and the effort that I'm putting in while I'm working for this company, if it makes sense, then I'm cool with that. But if the compensation doesn't make sense for the amount of time and effort and work that I'm putting in, then I'm gonna sit back and reevaluate my situation and then make a move from there, right? Don't just settle for less than what you feel like you deserve. I'm talking to all of you guys out there, particularly as it relates to the trucking industry. Don't settle for less than what you deserve. Before I got into the trucking industry, people was like, you have to have a year experience to do this job, and you have to have a year experience for that job, and you can't make six figures your first year in trucking. All of that is BS. None of that is true, right? I used to think you used to have to have a year experience to do fuel hauling. That's not true. That's been debunked. I know people who got into fuel hauling with zero experience. I know people who have made six figures their first year in trucking, food service drivers and fuel haulers, for example. So it's possible. It's money out here in trucking. You just have to be doing the right thing in trucking. That's what it comes down to. At the end of the day, I don't care what nobody say, I've seen it. I make pretty decent money. So the money is out here to be made. Again, I'm not trying to romanticize the trucking industry. The trucking industry definitely have a lot of flaws. It's not perfect by no stretch of the imagination, but trucking truly is what you make it. You have to figure out what works for you in terms of the job, in terms of the schedule, and everything else in between. If you have a significant other and you're trying to go over the road and you want your relationship to stay healthy and thriving, and you want to keep your partner happy, you may have to rethink that. Particularly if you have a partner that is not interested in getting in the truck with you, and they want you to be at home and things of that nature. That's something you have to think about. You have to consider all those things when you make these decisions, right? Like, another thing, man, when you're getting into the trucking industry, as it relates to your finances and money, one of the things I talk about on my channel is saving and investing. I'm big on investing. And some of you guys may be in a position to where you're not making enough money to invest anything, right? Like the person that I mentioned earlier, the guy, he said out his mouth that he was broke. So if you're in that type of situation, you may not have money to invest. So if you're in that position, obviously you want to do your best to try to find a job where you can actually make enough money so you can save and invest. Otherwise, you're going to be working for the rest of your life. If you can't find a way to put your money to work for you, you're going to be working for the rest of your life. And that's just the reality of it. Listen, some people work to live and other people live to work. You got to figure out which one are you. It's money out here to be made. Don't think it isn't. And it's not just in trucking, right? We're talking about trucking right now, but trucking obviously isn't the only profession where you can make money. But again, when you talk about over the road, when you talk about local, all companies aren't created equal. You can find drivers thriving in just about any lane that you can think of. So be strategic about your moves. And back to what I was saying about finances. Live below your means when you get into trucking. When you get it, if you are fortunate enough to get a job where you end up getting a pay increase, whether you're getting, a raise, or you end up leaving one job and going to another job where you're getting paid a significant increase. Like my situation, for example, my first trucking job, the pay, like I said, I was getting paid $1,600 bi-weekly. Now I make more than that in 1 week. So my income increased significantly. So it would have been very easy for me to go out and start spending money and buying things and increasing my living expenses, buying new cars and all these other type of things. I did have to purchase another car because my daughter totaled the car that I had prior to this one. And so I got this car. It wasn't brand new. My monthly payment only went up about $120, which was not a lot of money. Right? So it didn't really affect me too much. I didn't go out here and start just buying all this extra stuff. I spend way less than I make, which is why I was able to save and invest $30,000 in the span of 1 year and 11 months. It took a lot of discipline. It took a lot of delayed gratification. And $30,000 isn't a lot of money, but it's definitely something that I'm proud of. And I was able to do that because I was disciplined and I understood what I wanted to do with my finances. I didn't want to go out here and just blow a bunch of money. Even though I could afford it. I could afford to go out here and put a nice size down payment on a Corvette, for example. I've talked about on my channel how I love Corvettes and I wanted to get one. I was really adamant about getting one at one point. Now I rarely think about it. I'm like, nah, I'm not where I want to be financially, so I'm not going to go out here and make that type of purchase. I'd rather keep investing and growing my net worth. That's what it's all about for me at this point. I'm 43 years old. So I'm very particular on where I spend my money nowadays. You know what I mean? I didn't always think this way. It wasn't where my mind was at. My mindset was on something totally different. Let me go blow my money. Let me go buy some rims for my car. Let me go get a paint job. Let me go buy all these Jordans that come out. I don't care about none of that stuff no more. Like I said, in order for me to accomplish what I accomplished in terms of the amount of money that I've been able to save and invest, it came by me not buying the latest pair of Jordans that release. Not, going out to the clubs and all these other type of things, like these different vices that a lot of people have. I'm fortunate enough to not have some of these things, right? Some people have some very expensive habits, like smoking, drinking, going out to the club, buying the latest Jordans every time they come out, wanting to buy the latest iPhone, wanting to buy designer clothing, like all these different things. That's not something that I struggle with. So I don't have those habits, and I'm fortunate enough to not have those habits. I used to have a manager, and this is a little bit off topic, but I used to have a manager that he used to buy cartons of cigarettes. And I don't know if he ever went through a whole carton in a day, but if he didn't, he half a carton for sure. Buying carton of cigarettes is extremely expensive. So those are the type of habits that you can really sit down and see where your money going when you think about it. And so when you're in trucking can be a little bit, seasonal depending on what you're doing. So you have to understand that as well. If you're in an industry where your pay will fluctuate during a particular season, you may make more, you may make less. If you know that, then you got to put money away for the times where it gets a little bit slower. You can't just be going out here just spending, because you're going to find yourself in a financial situation and you're going to dig yourself in a hole that's going to be very hard to get out of. It's super easy to spend money and get into debt, but it's harder to get out of it. So you don't want to put yourself in those type of situations.